Welcome to another episode of Dark Side of the Word, a weekly podcast for all the dark story lovers and creatives out there. My name is Kait, and I am here with my determined co-host, CJ.
Hello, everybody. I feel like we've used determined before.
Shut up.
We have. Oh my God. Okay. I'm still determined. So it's still applicable.
Well, I am very happy. We only have one more episode left after this that I have to come up with an adjective for you.
I just will remind you that this was your decision completely, and if you're not happy with it, you can stop it before the end of the year. No one is holding you to this.
No. One more. I can do it.
All right. Is it going to be another recycled adjective?
No.
Ooh. Okay. I'm excited.
It was an accident. It was not meant to be recycled. Okay. Gosh. All right. Well. First off, it is the third Thursday of the month, which means it is time to talk about an industry topic or a trend or technical thing. I don't know.
Or stuff about writing.
Exactly. And we are going to continue on with our last part of our critique partner, beta reader series that we've been going on. And the last part consists of feedback. What do you do now that you have all of this feedback from the people?
I am very excited to talk about this because I could use some details on what to do with the feedback from the beta readers and the critique partners I have down, but what to do with the beta reader feedback specifically is where I want to kind of hone in on.
But you're supposed to be giving the advice.
I was thinking more you could give and I will contribute and be like, oh, that's a great idea. And just be your cheerleader.
God.
I can give some advice. Advice. But I
I'm
feel as though since I've only had like 3 beta readers and you've had 20 something, that you will be in a better position than I to give such advice.
30, but okay.
30.
Yeah. All right. Well, this specific section is very helpful for more after you get your beta reader comments than critique partner. But dealing with any feedback on any of your projects can be soul crushing and hard, and so it's okay.
But helpful. But soul crushing, yes.
And I have some funny / not so funny stories to tell you guys as well that I'm going to sprinkle in because I have 2 very distinct stories that I hope give insight into getting feedback. And my plan is to break this up into 2 parts. The first part will be how to determine what is good feedback, what is bad feedback, how to deal with the feedback. And then I really do want to take a moment in the second part and to deal with how to take care of yourself and your mental health after receiving all of the feedback. So I want to give some helpful advice and just remind you it's okay. Now, before we begin though, some rules.
Okay.
Remember, feedback is subjective. Just remember, it is very subjective. Art itself is subjective. Everything is based on an opinion. I hope you're listening to me, listeners. I hope you're hearing this, okay? Not everyone is going to like your book, and that does not mean your art, whatever. And that doesn't mean your art is bad, okay?
Sometimes it does, but not all the time.
Not all the time. But just remember, not everyone's going to like it.
Yeah.
And this is time to be very critical of your work, to really look through it, but also don't tear yourself down. Remember that you have confidence in what you have created as well. That's very important. I think having some confidence and faith in what you've created is really, really important when going through feedback. Because, like I said, feedback is subjective, which means not all feedback that you're going to hear is something that you need to listen to. Remember, this is not from the number 1 writer in the world. These are just readers. They might not even know anything technical. They might have it all wrong. I'm going to tell you some stories, okay? That's going to give light to all of this that I myself have been experienced, but I'm just letting you know, just have faith also in what your gut tells you is the right thing to do for your story. I've heard of people doing that for agents too, and they're like, I have to stick with what my art is. I'm not just going to let some agent tell me to do all these changes because that's what they want, but it's not my story, and that's not how my story goes. So stay true to yourself as well.
And I've heard stories of agents who will look at a manuscript and be like, oh, this is a great story, but I think we should change this, this, and this because of X, Y, and Z. The editor's going to want this. And I've heard of authors who make all these changes that the agents want, and then the agents pitch it to editors, and the editors are like, this is a nice story, but it would be great. And then they mention what the author originally had. So yes, take what's being told to you with a grain of salt. It could be helpful, it could not, but if it's not true to your vision, definitely reconsider it, because it's not exact. It's not what you should be doing automatically.
CJ is speaking truth.
I am.
But this is why we also go through beta readers. And the big thing about going through a larger chunk of beta readers is when you get the feedback from your beta readers, you're reading through all of it, you really need to come up with an organizational system of how to keep track of comments, where they are, what kind of comments going, how many people have made the same style comment about the same thing. And this is where you're going to get your stats, as I'd like to say.
That is really helpful advice. I never thought of doing that with my 3 beta readers.
Yeah, it's really important, because that's one of the key things I'm going to talk about later, is what to do with the statistics that you do it. But as you're reading through, and especially when you have people answering your questions, you want to keep track of how many people said so-and-so versus how many people said this other version. Or most of your beta readers are commenting on the same spot about the same thing, or they're always saying that your protagonist is like whiny, as an example, or something like that. You want to keep track of how much percentage of your beta readers actually had the same feelings on that. And so you could do a tally it by hand. I've used Excel/Google Sheets. I have kept track. Yes, it can get a little overwhelming, but in the end, it's going to be worth the extra work that you're putting in, because you're really going to be able to have a broader idea of the feedback that you're receiving, and then it's going to help you actually kind of weed out the good from the bad as well.
And don't forget to actually keep track of the good, not just the bad, because you're going to need some positive reinforcement as you go through it. So I like very color-coded things. So I would have, green for positive comments, maybe red or yellow for the negative comments, just so you can look at it at a glance and just see it through the colors. Like, oh, there's some really good stuff in here with the stuff I need to work on.
Exactly. And what I also like about tallying the feedback as well and doing all of this is it really can break up your story and your editing into chunks. It's not like you're just looking from the whole thing from start to finish. You can really be like, well, this is the one area, this is the chunk I need to fix, or this is the one area. And then it makes editing after beta readers a little bit easier as well. So yes, so take your time to do all of that and to read it through. Now, taking that information, so you've got your feedback, you've organized it, you kind of get a general overview of what's going on. So how do you determine what you should be listening to and what you shouldn't be listening to? Now, I want to tell you that...
Is it story time?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But soon. I just want to remind you guys, you just did a lot of work. You just read all of that so much. You had tons of comments, negative, positive, about your book. So you need to take a moment between organizing your feedback before you analyze it.
That is true.
This is a great self-care moment. Take a few days off. Let all of that pain wash over you and go away.
Yeah, do something else. Do not look at your manuscript. Try not to think about your manuscript. Take up a different hobby for like 2 days. Just wipe your mind and go back into it fresh and rested, because it'll be a lot easier to deal with it.
If you listen to our critique partner episode, I do believe specifically we mentioned how we take a break. For we get feedback from each other. It's like we take a quick break.
Yeah.
Because I have personally experienced getting feedback that I didn't want to receive. And it wasn't even like, say, CJ giving it to me, but like when I was with my beta readers, like I got feedback I didn't want and it was really hard to handle. And then I let it like sit for a few days. And then I was like, no, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
They are right. But I just didn't want to like hear it.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to hear this. I mean, you didn't just send this out to all these people and do all this work to be like for it to be pointless. You need to have this. We want our best possible product put out there when we finally send it to agents or self-publish.
You think you're ready to hear the negatives, but you're not really ever ready to hear the negatives. You want everything to be like, oh, it's wonderful, people should be signing you up left and right, and not people going, well, I really had a problem with nothing, it's perfect, is what you want to hear. So yes, just allow yourself to feel the feelings, take the time to process them. Don't lambast your readers, with like, what the hell is wrong with you? Just absorb.
Exactly. And I mean, just remember, even the most famous, say, Stephen King, the people will find issues with his books. That doesn't matter. Like, nothing's going to be perfect and there's always going to be a comment.
That's true.
So the first quickest way to deal with the beta reader comments is to look at the results that you've done and the tallies that you've taken, and where do the most comments come from. This is a great example of what probably is good feedback, because if 5 out of your 8 people are all saying the same thing, that this is bugging them or they don't understand, especially when it comes to them saying they don't understand something. If you have a vast majority of your readers commenting on the same thing about not understanding, that's a good indication that it probably is good feedback and you might want to pay attention, especially when it comes to technical stuff, not say aesthetically how your art is or the fact that everyone's saying they don't like cats and there's cats in your book. But if they're making the same comment that they're too confused at this part, or they don't have enough backstory to understand what's going on, or they can't stand the character and it's turning them off so much. Those are the moments that you really want to hone in on and spend your time fixing. That's how very good way to tell what is good feedback and what is not.
When I was reading Stephen King, actually his On Writing book, which I loved and I thought was really, really helpful, he talks about feedback from readers. And he mentioned, if you have 2 readers, and both of them are in agreement that they don't like X section, you should probably listen to them. But if one likes it and one doesn't, it's divided. Usually you tend to go with the author's preference, because somebody's always not going to like something or other. But when everybody seems to be mostly in agreement, like Kate said, just look it over, because it probably needs to be worked on.
Which is the best segue into my next comment, which is if once you've seen the tally, this is why you need distance too, is why this next way to tell is you need distance, because you really need to look at stuff with a clear set of eyes, because when it's split, say 50-50, or you're getting the comment but something just doesn't feel right, remember you really do need to listen to your gut. You need to listen to what your artistic thing is and what is resonating with you and what you're writing. So, story time number 1. Does anyone want a story here?
Story. I would like a story. Thank you.
Because I do really feel that this might be a good place to place this story. So when I was sending my beta readers out, I got feedback from another writer. Now, this is not someone who was published. Names will not be named, but I just want to make it very clear. This is a prolific writer who's not published and hasn't actually sent their work out or to anything, to be read by anyone.
I was going to ask, does this person's name rhyme with DJ by any chance? But no. I sent my work out, so I'm safe.
No. You also have never been a beta reader.
That's true. Okay.
So I just want to make it very clear, because also in this person's feedback to me, they offer to help me in fixing my book. To make it the best that it could be, because there were strong opinions based on the feedback, or based on what they read of my book. Now, I did look at this person a little bit higher, because at the time I was a newer writer and this person had a lot of time under their belt, and I felt that, I thought highly of them. Let's just say that.
We've all made that mistake.
Well, after reading through all of the stuff, I quickly learned, based on the part of the story that I'll tell you, that their feedback might not be from a genuine place, and that they might not be a reliable source to receive feedback from. So my story is based in Seattle, and if anyone has been out to the Pacific Northwest area, especially around the Puget Sound, there are really no sandy beaches. Sand does not exist out there. They are rocky beaches, but they're not all big rocks. They do have some tiny pebbles that stick all over your feet and are horrible and disgusting. And I wanted to make that very clear in one of the scenes that the girls visit a lake, because the lake that I was specifically setting it at did not have sand and had the pebbles. Okay. And so I made it very clear that pebbles were flying as they were walking and all of this stuff was going on, and I wanted it to be very specific. And the comment to that section was essentially, don't remember the exact wording used, but essentially stop being so pretentious and just call it sand.
Wow.
And I was but it's not sand.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So, and receiving a few comments of that ilk, that was my indication that, and then the offer of helping me to write my book better, that was an indication that it was time to take that entire review and throw it in the trash. And I could really sense the emotion in the writing of wanting to, even subconsciously, but not being here for my best interest, because they themselves, I think, felt very insecure about what their writing journey had been. And so that is what I say about trusting your gut, trusting the feedback, being able to read and understand what's going on, so that way when you see comments like, when I got this person's feedback and the rip apart that I got, I curled up into a ball and cried my eyes out.
As one does, definitely.
Because not only did I know this person knew me, so I felt very vulnerable, and like they hate me because they hate my work.
Yeah.
There was just, it was a lot. But then, I put the distance, I thought it out, I listened to my gut, I realized what I wanted versus what they were asking for, and it very quickly turned this thing where I was just like, okay, done.
And another good thing to point out is that, you're getting what's hopefully constructive criticism, but it's not always going to be put in the most kind way. So, that beta reader could have said something like, oh, did you mean to say sand here? It might be better if you said sand, or even asking, is there a reason you chose pebbles instead of sand? Instead, she just immediately assumed you were being pretentious and sent you a scathing comment. And there were so many other ways she could have gone about that, but she didn't. And that is sometimes what you will face. And it's not fair, but that's what it is. So you got to be prepared to meet some assholes along.
They also said that you couldn't feel emotions in your arms and have feelings in your arms, and you're feeling
emotions in your arms. Well, like my arm is sad today, or
well, but like when you're angry, like you wouldn't feel anything in response to that anger in your arms, because I'd have like arms tightening, or I would have things go numb.
Buzzes through all of you,
A perfect example. And so that was another comment, and I was like, cool.
So how is this beta reader doing in the publishing circuit these days?
Oh, I think nothing.
Color me surprised.
I haven't talked to this person in probably 3 years. No.
Ouch. Yeah.
Okay,
well then. Yeah, a live and learn situation.
But it should give you confidence, listeners, to remember that it's okay to throw some of those comments away. It's okay. You do have to weed out the good from the bad.
That's why you have 30 of them to go to, apparently, so you can just have some that are tossaways.
Exactly.
Not so that was story number one. Winner. Okay.
The other thing to keep track of comments to weed out the good from the bad is to determine where the comment is coming from.
Like a person who reads books, or a person who doesn't read books, or
sort of like, are there ulterior motives behind what they're saying? Does the reader understand what is going on, or is misunderstanding everything because they don't understand how to read context clues at all? But really ulterior motive, or just being opinionated to the point that they don't understand why you're asking them to read your book.
Yeah, because they really want to rewrite your book the way they would like to have your book done.
Sort of, but well, story number two.
I sensed it was coming.
So I had another reader who was a close family friend, and I think it's very clear to preface all of this by saying that before I sent out beta readers, I did so much research on what it meant to send your book or manuscript out to beta readers. So I read like, what should you expect? What should you be sending them? All this stuff. And multiple sources told me to send a detailed questionnaire with my book. Mm-hmm. So I took my time and I wrote this beautiful questionnaire about my book. And I made very clear I did all my research on what to expect from a beta reader. What could I ask from them? What could I get back? And I sent all this to this person. And they said, well, how do I say this without giving this person away? Well, they had a source. I'll say that. They had a source that said that what I was asking for was not a beta reader, and it was a developmental editor stuff. And that I was asking too much of them for what they were doing. And I needed to go hire editors or something like that. And I was like, no, I'm 99% sure that what I just sent you is normal.
Yeah, and you can look it up online anywhere.
I was like, do you not know what a beta reader is?
Okay.
I wasn't asking for, I was asking the very typical questions that we covered in What to Ask Beta Readers. Did you get the character arc? Did this part feel too slow or too
Yeah.
fast for you? Did you understand the timing of everything? Did the characters feel believable? Were the emotions something that you wanted? Things like of that nature.
Yeah. Normal stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I received this person's comments back, you could very much tell that there was some sort of anger or upsetness because their source wasn't doing as well in their publishing industry. And I'm not saying they were trying to get published. They were working in the publishing industry. Their source was working in the publishing industry. And all of this stuff. And you could just feel that there was anger from their source seeping into the comments that I was receiving.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of that? Form your own damn opinion, beta reader. Do you want to do this or not? Wow. Okay.
So that was one where it did feel like there was an ulterior motive, or there was something going on in the background that when I received the comments back, I literally just threw them all in the trash.
Yeah. And again, that was a weird way for them to go about it. You can just say, you know, here's what I thought of this, but I really don't think I can elaborate on this. And that's it. That's all you got to say. You don't have to be like, I conferred with my friend who works in the publishing industry, and they said that you're asking me to do somebody else's job.
You're asking me to do a job that people get paid to do, is what it essentially, like, I'm asking them to do free work. And I was like, okay, but whatever. Just say, no, you won't do it. Like, whatever.
Yeah. That's okay. That's weird.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
that
still
person's not
friends with
invited
this
to
person.
events. Really?
Yes.
Okay. That's big of you. I don't know if I would be.
It's a family friend.
Okay.
I'll tell you who it is after. Because I'd like to keep this anonymous. And you'll understand
Understandable. Yes.
why they're still friends.
Okay. Well, that's very kind of you.
Well, as you can see, these are very great stories to learn as you're going through your own beta reader journey. That things will happen, and it's okay to say, no thank you.
Yep. Definitely.
The last thing to know is as you're reading all this feedback and you're determining what's good and bad and what you want to use and what you don't use, is to remember that you're actually reading the feedback and you're not just reacting to it. And again, this is why you need the distance. Is you want to make sure that what you're reading, you're taking in, you're analyzing, you're determining, and you're not just being like, this person Do you know how angry I got about the Sam comment? Like,
Very.
I had to put distance. Like, I'm still angry. Can you tell? I still bring up the story.
I can tell. I can tell. It's lingered.
I still do it. I still bring up the story. It made it to a podcast. Maybe now I can move on.
Maybe you've had it serve its purpose. It's educated others, and now you can begin the letting go process.
Now, do you have anything you'd like to add about determining the good from the bad?
The biggest part would just be, I think, what we already covered about if a lot of people are saying something, pay attention to it, and especially if it rings true to what you kind of known lurking in the back of your mind but didn't want to admit to. As writers, I feel like there's so many things that we question, and we're like, no, this kind of bothers me, but I don't want to deal with it right now, so I'm going to see if anybody else picks up on it, and then they do, and you're like, well, fuck. You know, I was right. Yeah, I do that all the time. I think everybody does that all the time, and you want them to tell you when those are sticking out, because if it's sticking out in your head, it's sticking out at their heads. It's going to be sticking out to an agent or a publisher who's going to be like, you know what, this isn't hitting right. I'm going to move on. So pay attention to the things you don't want to pay attention to.
And even if you don't get resounding comments on that one section that's been bothering you, maybe just getting a couple is enough to remind you that, like, yeah, your gut was right. You really do need to work on that section more than you think.
Yeah.
It's just, again, remember, like, this isn't to hurt you or to tear you down or to, oh, I gotta grow a thick skin and I have to do all this. Really, it's using every tool available that you have to be able to create the best version of this manuscript. It doesn't, or art, whatever it is. Like, it's so important to put your best foot forward and just...
It's just really important to do that right now because the market in every genre is so oversaturated. Everybody wants to be a writer. Everybody is querying agents and publishers. And there's just so much more competition than there ever was. We have to be as flawless as possible when we submit to publishers and agents. And just making sure your manuscript has gone through rounds of critique partner edits and beta reader edits. It's just going to make you stand up more from the crowd and stand out and make it seem like you're ready to be published. They don't have to, the agents and the publishers don't have to do as much work with you because you've done it all already for them. You've done their jobs for them. So that's basically what we have to do these days to get traditionally published. So it's all going to end up benefiting you in the long run. It'll just take time and patience and fortitude, but it'll be beneficial.
And just think, wouldn't you rather have all these comments when you can fix it and it's not permanently out there in the world, then put it out there and all these people are commenting on it and that version of your book is on these shelves and you can't take it back.
Yeah, that's even better than what I was thinking. I was thinking that you send it out to agents and all of them come back with the same comment like, oh, this wasn't hitting right, and that's something that bothered you but you didn't want to address it. But yeah, having it be on a shelf and people hating your book and not wanting to buy your second book is much, much worse. New depth to fear. Okay.
Remember, not everyone's gonna like it. It's okay. It's okay. You're always gonna have haters, guys. We're all like, everyone has haters. Like,
haters gonna hate. It's okay.
Yeah, you're not gonna be loved by all.
Most of them are just jealous anyway. So.
Okay, so you've gone through the feedback. You've determined how much you have to rip your book apart.
I have.
It is time to take care of yourself.
It's time to quit writing as a career.
I mean, not only did you just become very vulnerable by sharing your art with probably people you do know, because a lot of times your beta readers will be people that you know in person. That's like very hard. Like,
very, very hard.
You really got to reward yourself for that. Pat yourself on the back for just sending that shit out. You know how many people don't send their art out because they're too fucking afraid and they hide it and squirrel it away in themselves?
A lot of people.
Yes, that sets you apart from others. But you need to reward yourself for that, and to pat yourself on the back. It's amazing.
Feed yourself some chocolate and some cake, or chocolate cake. Combine them both. Why choose?
Also, it's okay if you cry after feedback, even if the person's right. It is perfectly fine to break down and curl in a corner and cry and throw their comment on the ground and walk away from it. You'll come back to it later, but it's okay.
I've cried after every single one of Kate's full critiques.
Really?
I've just burst into tears and sat sobbing at the kitchen table, especially the first one. But you were right.
Can we lead with that, because you make me sound horrible?
Well, no, because it's just, it's like we said, you build up and you expect that person to be like, oh, it's wonderful. And then you get that real, honest feedback that you need to hear. But it's hard. It's really hard because this is your baby you've worked on. And I sat sobbing for 15 minutes at my kitchen table thinking I was the worst writer in the world. But I was wrong because you were right, and you may be a much better writer. A much better writer. You made my story much better. It would not have been as good without you. So there's payoff in the end. But you gotta cry it out first.
Let's remember, we're also fucking tired. We don't want to have to work on this story anymore. We're fucking exhausted from this.
Yes.
You're telling me I gotta redo it?
Your story. Yeah. I think that's the main reason why people don't do beta readers or don't send out a lot of beta readers, is that you're just tired by that point. You've been working on this probably the better part of a year, give or take, probably more, and you're just so damn tired of your own damn story that you don't want to look at it one more time. Mm-hmm. So you don't, and then you get fucked over later on. But it's worth looking at and paying attention to and putting in the extra time, because again, it will pay off in the end when an agent is like, oh, this is a really polished manuscript. They really know how to tell a story. Boom.
Which CJ's gotten tons of feedback now, like tons of full requests. So listen to the expert.
Yeah. Expert, not the non-published expert, the non-agented expert.
You have so many full requests on your last book. So.
I do, which I am very happy about.
I think yours
still have much to learn.
I think yours is due to not your book, but the market, to be honest.
A little bit my book, a little bit the market.
But really the market.
We're going to say the market. We're just going to blame the market. Totally. Yeah. It's imperfect. No.
The other thing is, do not rush this time. I know you may want to, and you may want to be like, let me just hurry up and get it over with, but you really can't rush the process. If you're going to go through all this pain, just do it right the first time. Take lots of breaks. Anytime that you feel your mental health slipping, step away, take breaks. Remember, I mentioned a couple of very important ones as you're going through it. Learn to recognize your own biases as well. That's a sign you need to take a break. If you're recognizing those biases, take a fucking break. And remember that they're just readers. They're not experts. This isn't like, I mean, yeah, if Stephen King was reading your book, you better fucking listen to him. But they're not Stephen King.
Yeah.
And just remember that they are trying to make your book better most of the time. Like, honestly, I think that's why I threw away this too, because it didn't actually feel like they were trying to make my book better. Yeah. It felt like they were just coming with their own agenda.
Yeah.
But all of my other comments, exactly, but all of my other beta readers, all the other people who really meant something, it really felt that they were like, yeah, like, let me help her make her book better. And that's amazing and beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a ton of people to thank in your acknowledgement section when you do finally get published. And that'll feel really, really good for both ends, for the readers and for you.
And you just really also want to just pay attention to your nervous system, the parasympathetic. You whatever you can do to bring that down during this time period, you know, a bath, a walk, you know, cooking a dinner, like whatever your coping mechanism is to deal with these stressful times, you have to lean into it. It's just as important. It's like doing your job, is taking care of yourself so you can come back in and jump in and properly deal with the work on hand.
And just remember that every writer deals with this. I'm sure even published authors deal with this too. Yes, they may have agents, they may have editors, they still have to get their books reviewed, they still have to get feedback from agents.
Unless you're Sarah J. Maas and you fire everyone and say fuck
Unless
you.
you do that. For the most part, most reasonable authors have to have their work reviewed by people, and it's just part of the process, like writing your query or your description of the book.
I mean, even V.E. Schwab has to get her book reviewed, and she gets comments back.
Yeah.
I love when authors go on Instagram and they comment like, yeah, I knew my editor was going to get me on this. Or, they don't like this word I put here.
I saw once that Taylor Jenkins Reid, who did Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six and so many other books. She's one of my favorite authors. She posted something on her Instagram once, and it was a page from one of her proofs, and it had circles on it and like editor comments, and it was like, Taylor, I think one simile per page is enough, or something like that. So it's like even she is getting the feedback and like the little jibs, you know, and it happens to everybody. It's just the hallmark of a good writer, is that people are going to be wanting to read your stuff and give you feedback and tell you how to be even better.
Exactly. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap all this up?
Just that I really like your idea of making like a spreadsheet to kind of keep track of all the comments, because I didn't really think about that, and I love that idea because it definitely makes it more organized. You can see where the problem areas are more clearly. And I think I'm going to do that with my next book whenever I decide to beta read it.
It's just the scientist in me showing up somewhere.
It's helpful. It's really helpful because I just don't think of that. I just kind of think of having to jumble it all together, but that makes it much clearer.
I am a Google Sheets queen. If it can be in a Google Sheet, it will be in a Google Sheet.
Yeah, I love Microsoft Excel sheets. I don't use the Google ones, but Excel, and I love color coding because it just makes it pretty and easy to read. So yeah.
Well, friends, you have one more week to still read book club before the episode comes out. We are reading Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling. And if you still think you have time, you can use our bookshop link in the description and show notes to buy your copy at no extra cost to you. Right? I don't know, something like that.
We get a kickback, but no extra cost to you. But buying the book will be a cost to you because you have to buy the book.
There you go. Thank you.
Disclaimers.
Thank you for having the correct words. I just went, what? It has to happen at some point. That'll never go away. No. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thank you for listening to Dark Side of the Word, a weekly podcast for all the dark story lovers and creatives out there. We are also audio only on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart. But goodbye and have a great creative journey.
Bye!
Bye.